Executive Briefing Initiation. This explainer operates as an executive briefing on the absolute realities of enterprise resource planning implementations. The stakes of transitioning an enterprise to a new digital central nervous system are existential. An ERP go-live is not merely an IT event, it is a fundamental operational disruption that requires uncompromising governance and a refusal to accept optimistic assumptions. Today we are examining the exact mechanics of why these massive initiatives fail, the operational prerequisites required before you even consider throwing the switch, and the deeply psychological variables that govern user adoption. Our core objective here is to help you secure baseline core integrity and systematically defy the vendor hype that so often clouds executive judgment. We will break down the process, the platform, and the people, leaving you with a rigid framework for execution.
Briefing Roadmap. Here is the analytical roadmap for our briefing today. Agenda structure. First, we will cover the high-stakes hook and executive overview. Second, we move into a detailed operational postmortem. Third, we will map out the human blueprint. And finally, we will establish the chronological action plan and guardrails. Let us begin.
Section 1. Executive Overview. Section 1. The high-stakes hook and executive overview. The reality of implementation failure. Entering an implementation without baseline integrity carries severe, often unrecoverable financial consequences. According to Gartner, somewhere between 55 and 75% of ERP implementation projects are considered unsuccessful. Let that sink in for a moment. They systematically fail to deliver according to their set objectives. This is a staggering failure rate for initiatives that often represent the absolute largest capital expenditure an IT department will make in a decade. You might be asking why this happens so frequently. The foremost reasons are grounded in poor management, business goals that shift mid-project, and a profound, fatal lack of top management support. Without realistic, locked-in goals, you expose the entire enterprise to chaotic scope creep. This kind of creep doesn't just delay timelines, it possesses the capacity to completely halt supply chains, freeze order fulfillment processes, and temporarily blind your finance department to actual cash flow realities. You are risking the operational heartbeat of the company.
The illusion of the seamless transition. There is a severe contrast between the polished hype of vendor sales pitches and the grim reality of actual technical debt. Vendors are highly incentivized to sell you a vision of instant, cross-departmental optimization. They show you clean dashboards and promise seamless integration, but the historical data tells a profoundly different story. According to Panorama Consulting, 38% of implementations go over budget, and they do so by an average of 66%. Furthermore, nearly half of all ERP projects exceed their scheduled timelines. The expectation gap. Managers often harbor high expectations for instant profitability the moment the system goes live. When the real-world operational friction becomes apparent, this expectation gap creates immense internal disappointment and points fingers at leadership. End users with unmanaged expectations experience significantly less utility when the finished system inevitably requires them to adapt their daily workflows. You have to completely discard the marketing promises. Process before platform is the only viable reality in this space. Fatal costs of poor planning. Let us ground these statistical assertions in historical reality. When ERP implementations fail, they are not just quiet IT missteps. They possess the capacity to destroy enterprise value completely and publicly. Corporate disasters. Hewlett-Packard. In 2004, Hewlett-Packard attempted to centralize their disparate legacy systems. Due to a series of mismanaged contingencies and poor data integration, the project exceeded its estimated cost by 5 times, burning through $160 million and causing significant disruption to their order processing. Foxmeyer Drugs. This is perhaps the most sobering example. Once a $5 billion pharmaceutical provider, Foxmeyer declared bankruptcy just 3 years after initiating a massive ERP project. The cascading operational failures resulted in a massive lawsuit against their vendor and the total dissolution of the company. LeasePlan. In a slightly different scenario, LeasePlan abandoned an IT transformation across 30 countries entirely. The sheer complexity and lack of core alignment consumed close to $100 million before executives finally pulled the plug. These are not anomalies. They are the direct, predictable result of failing to secure core systemic integrity before launching.
Section 2. Operational Postmortem. Section 2. Detailed Operational Postmortem and Baseline Integrity.
Non-negotiable showstoppers. Before any system optimization is even considered, the baseline integrity of the core system has to be secured. Understanding exactly what constitutes an absolute operational showstopper is non-negotiable for your executive team. Phase A stability pillars. Bug eradication. Severity 1 bugs are total showstoppers requiring the implementation schedule to cease immediately until they are resolved. Severity 2 bugs, while slightly less catastrophic, will still inflict major operational damage and require absolute elimination before you even think about going live. Hardware testing. Hardware setup requires exhaustive verification across all geographical sites under a heavy, simulated load. A system might easily survive a few super users poking around during beta testing, but it can utterly collapse when thousands of employees attempt to process simultaneous transactions on go-live morning. Data migration. Moving from one legacy format to a modern architecture carries massive inherent risk. Failing to secure this migration ensures corrupted operations in the new environment, permanently tainting your analytics.
Securing the single source of truth. If data quality issues are identified during the testing phases and subsequently ignored to meet an artificial deadline, the implementation will fail. It is that simple. Poor data imported into a new, highly integrated environment severely compromises the integrity of the entire system. Rigorous data cleansing workflows are mandatory, not optional. Data directives. You must ensure complete, consistent, and accurate data. This means systematically eradicating all missing values and redundant duplicates before the transfer. You must standardize data formats across all departments and meticulously map them to their corresponding fields in the new architecture. You must cleanse legacy data to achieve a true single source of truth. Taking the time and allocating the resources to resolve these specific data issues on the front end is quite literally the only way to protect the enterprise from cascading post-live failures that take months to unravel.
The danger of program modifications. Let us evaluate the inherent dangers of carrying a heavy load of program modifications. Customizations are incredibly costly up front, but worse, they represent a permanent future tax on your organization. They become a heavy burden for all future support, maintenance, and system upgrades. There is an industry maxim that holds true. If the effort required to modify the software exceeds 30% of your total project effort, there is a fundamental misalignment. It means either the wrong ERP product was selected by the procurement team, or the implementation team completely failed to map the platform to actual, necessary business requirements. Carrying custom code guarantees delayed go-lives and continuous architectural headaches. Gap list items should be rigorously classified by priority. Only legitimate showstoppers and the absolute highest priority items belong in the initial launch sequence. Everything else can wait for Phase 2.
Process before platform. This brings us to our core operational thesis. Automating broken workflows only scales inefficiencies. Current state value stream mapping has to lead directly to future state mapping. You cannot simply purchase new software and drop it on top of dysfunctional operational habits. Doing so is a recipe for expensive chaos. Clean financial ledgers, rigorously validated inventory processes, and streamlined, optimized workflows must precede platform activation. If the underlying business processes are fundamentally flawed, an advanced ERP system will not fix them. It will merely execute those exact same flaws with much greater speed and broader organizational visibility. Process always dictates platform success.
Section 3. The Human Blueprint. Section 3. The Human Blueprint and Managing Human Capital. Change fatigue and identity capital. We now shift focus to the most volatile, unpredictable variable in any enterprise transformation: human capital. The software will function exactly as it was configured. The human operators absolutely will not. Employee resistance and change fatigue represent the systematic, often subconscious rejection of new processes that disrupt deeply established routines. When employees do not intimately understand how a new system works, they will immediately invent complex workarounds using familiar legacy methods. Disrupting an organization's culture, which is comprised of its deeply held beliefs and daily behaviors, directly threatens employee identity capital. The evidence clearly indicates that organizations with healthy, carefully managed cultures where communication is prioritized perform exponentially better during these massive deployments.
The stakeholder matrix. Securing alignment across thousands of employees requires an exhaustive, highly targeted communication strategy. Organizations with strong stakeholder communication protocols are 73% more likely to actually achieve their change management goals. Targeted messaging parameters. Executive leadership. This group requires sharp updates tied directly to strategic goals, specifically cost savings and real-time operational insights. Department managers. They need heavy emphasis on their role as frontline change leaders. You must help them balance intense executive expectations with the very real concerns of their specific teams. End users. This is your largest and most naturally resistant group. They need messaging tailored specifically to their daily tasks, constantly highlighting the new features that will eliminate their current pain points. IT teams. They require highly detailed architectural updates and realistic timeline adjustments, alongside a very public acknowledgement of their massive, stressful workload.
Dismantling executive assumptions. This dynamic raises a critical, uncomfortable question for leadership. Why do executives persistently assume end users will naturally adopt an unproven system without putting up resistance? It is an incredibly dangerous assumption to make. End users are deeply accustomed to legacy systems that, despite their flaws, have worked for them for years. Change causes severe operational and psychological friction. Employees further down the hierarchy need to be explicit and repeatedly informed about exactly why the change is taking place at a macro level. Without consistent, transparent communication detailing the implementation's progress and clear business justifications, the unknowns of a sprawling ERP rollout will breed intense internal turmoil and active, organized rejection.
Compulsion at go-live. To effectively combat this organic organizational resistance, a sharp, highly direct strategy is required. You must mandate compulsion at go-live. Old habits die hard, and they die even harder under stress. End users possess a very natural inclination to regress to their old, comfortable ways the minute the new system presents any friction or confusion. Therefore, it is absolutely essential to sever the cord and turn off all legacy systems at the exact point of go-live. You must leave no option, no secret backdoor, and no alternative workflow for the end users. Reverting to the old system is simply not a valid contingency plan for user frustration, and this needs to be explicitly ruled out in all executive messaging weeks in advance. Total adoption is mandatory, and you must design the environment to enforce it.
Section 4. Chronological Action Plan. Section 4. The Chronological Action Plan, Guardrails, and Survival.
The chronological sequence success requires laying out the exact mechanics of execution and ensuring post-live survival. This specific sequence maps the critical operational dependencies leading up to the final switch. Execution phases. Weeks prior, you must finalize all master data, keeping any legacy system changes to an absolute minimum to avoid last-minute corruption. Hours prior, execute the precise cutover plan by halting all business processes with a financial impact and completing the final critical data load. Go live. Certain high-risk environments, particularly in finance, should utilize parallel processing. This means entering transactions into both the legacy and new systems simultaneously and reconciling the outputs daily to ensure absolute accuracy. Post-go live, instantly activate the triage help desk. Do not underestimate the initial volume. You should safely assume you will receive approximately 1 ticket request for every 2 end users on day 1.
Dissecting the cutover protocol. Methodical execution of the cutover protocol is your primary defense against total operational chaos. Unrealistic schedules inevitably breed chaotic task completion, and shortcutting phases causes already completed tasks to be redone under immense pressure. You must enforce strict transaction cutoff procedures for warehouse receiving, accounts payable, and all order processing. Crucially, you must build a comprehensive backout plan. A backout plan is ultimate insurance. Implementing it is a bitter pill to swallow, but it is vastly preferable to destroying your operational capacity. If processing in the new ERP simply cannot continue due to a catastrophic failure, this plan dictates exactly how transactions are identified, carefully entered back into the legacy system, and reconciled. It is a vital, life-saving mechanism.
Audit tracking and rollback mechanics. Absolute clarity in user competency tracking and rollback procedures is required prior to crossing the point of no return. Comprehensive end-user training ensures accurate data entry, which is essential for maintaining record-keeping integrity on day 1. Track training effectiveness rigorously. You should treat an ERP driver's license as a compulsory, non-negotiable test for securing system access. If they don't pass, they don't touch the system. Simultaneously, document the formalized cutover rollback triggers. Identify the exact contact person and the specific procedure details for every department. If a Severity 1 bug surfaces post-launch that paralyzes the entire supply chain, the decision matrix for triggering the backout plan needs to be entirely pre-established and pre-approved by executive leadership. You cannot be negotiating this matrix during a live crisis. The final executive directive, post-go-live stability, requires permanent, exhausting vigilance. The conclusion of the official implementation timeline absolutely does not mark the end of your operational risk. You must establish a formal, permanent triage process. Problems that prohibit physical products from moving through the supply chain must be attacked instantly by your top-tier talent. Do not allow reporting delays to cascade, as undoing the data damage later takes exponentially more time than resolving the root problem immediately. I leave you with this uncompromising question regarding your internal discipline. When the inevitable resistance surfaces and the sheer friction of the new system strains your operational capacity to its breaking point, what is your executive threshold for process regression? Hold the line, secure the core integrity, defy the vendor hype, and force the process forward.